Hey guys, this week I'm going to be doing a little bit different type of video. I'm not going to be doing one of my crazy off-the-wall videos. I just don't have the energy for that right now. So I'm going to do a little bit more low-key video here, and we're going to talk about movies. I've been watching a lot of movies lately, probably more than I usually do. I actually just got back from seeing the new Planet of the Apes. The original Planet of the Apes is one of my favorite films of all time. The new one, I didn't think it looked very good in the trailer, but people kept saying, oh, it's a great movie. The critics thought it was great. The fans thought it was great. So I decided to check out a matinee and see for myself. I'll say this about the movie. The CGI characters are the best looking and most realistic CGI characters I've ever seen in a movie. The visual effects are that well done. It was impressive. That being said, I didn't think it was a very good movie. I thought it was a bit boring. The characters were very hard to connect to. The original, and I don't want to compare it to the original Planet of the Apes because that's such a great movie that stands on its own, but the original had all these different elements and layers. In the beginning, it's almost kind of like a space science fiction movie, and then they land on the planet and they have to make their way through before the apes even show up. The original also deals with themes like racism, nuclear war, religion, things that people can still kind of think about even today, all these years later. The new one is just kind of a more straightforward thriller, and I mean, I guess it's okay for what it is. I found it a little dull and boring. I also saw Green Lantern recently. I thought it looked really good from the trailer, even though other people were saying, it's not that good. I decided to check it out for myself. I didn't have that high of expectations, but now I know what other people were talking about. I found it kind of boring. It's another movie too where it's hard to find characters that you can relate to. There's only a couple of human characters in the movie, and one of them has a magic ring that gives them these superpowers. It's kind of hard to identify with that guy. I think I have superhero fatigue. There's just so many superhero movies coming out now, and they're all the same. And normally I'm the market that would love those. I grew up collecting comic books. I grew up a big fan of Batman, big fan of Superman, and seeing these characters come to the screen would have been a dream for me when I was a kid, but we just have so many of them now, and there's very few that are really that interesting or well done. You have the new Batman movie coming out, and a lot of people are excited for that. And I've always been a huge Batman fan, but the last couple Batman films just didn't do it for me. I thought they were a little boring and a little ordinary, and I thought the action scenes weren't that good. The Batman movie from 1989, it was just in this whole other world, and it kind of drew you in, and it was just so interesting. These new ones, they just seem kind of ordinary. Batman Begins, I thought it was kind of boring, and Batman wasn't in the movie very much. The Dark Knight was a little bit better, but it also got a little boring towards the end where they brought in that subplot about the boats that were going to crash into each other. They introduced all these new characters all of a sudden that we haven't seen before, so we have no reason to care about. And then when some of them are going to die, why would we care? I'm just getting tired of these movies, I think, so I'm not excited for the new Batman movie. They have a movie coming out called Warrior, and this is kind of like a Rocky for MMA. I'm a huge MMA fan, so you'd think I'd be excited to see that. I'm really not that excited because MMA is hard to translate to movies. I haven't really seen it done successfully yet. MMA has kind of ruined movies for me because I've always been a big fan of action movies and martial arts movies, but now that you're seeing the UFC, seeing real fights is so much more exciting than seeing a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie or something like that where they're doing fake fighting. In this day and age, who cares about a fake fight when you can turn on the TV and see a real one? But in this movie, Warrior, it'll probably be an okay movie, but it's just going to be hard to make a movie MMA fight as exciting as a real-life MMA fight. So what else have I been watching? Well, I've been watching this here. A DVD of Louis Koo movies. This one disc has 10 different Louis Koo films on it. And if you're not familiar with Louis Koo, he's a Hong Kong actor. He's kind of like the Chinese version of George Clooney, only his movies aren't boring. He's kind of the good-looking, suave, cool guy. And every night I've been watching one of his movies. There's 10 different movies on this disc. They're all different genres, all different tones. Some of them are pretty silly, some of them are serious, some of them are thrillers, but every one has been good. In fact, I've thought these movies have been so good, I added a bunch of Louis Koo movies to my Netflix queue. The Hong Kong movies, I've been a fan of those since long before it was cool to be a fan of those. I grew up on the Kung Fu movies, and then in the early 90s when they started importing like some of those John Woo films and releasing them in the United States on VHS, I was a big fan of those long before most people had heard of those. But what movies have you guys been watching? What are your opinions on the movies that I mentioned? Is there anything that you think I should be watching? Any thoughts that you want to leave on anything you've seen? Leave a comment and let me know.